Hello and welcome to Take Time. I am your host Patrick Marlett, and today I have a very special review for you. This is the new C60 Trident GMT from Christopher Ward. I have been very fortunate to have received this watch months in advance so I can spend ample time with it and share my opinions of it with you all here. So for treating me like a king, thank you so much, Chris and Suzanne, and of course the team over at Christopher Ward for getting this piece out to me. Again, this is Christopher Ward's Trident 3 series. This marks the 10th anniversary for the brand's most iconic Trident diver. It has been redesigned and upgraded all over. So before we even get into the review, I'm going to discuss all of the changes between this particular model and its previous iteration. One of the most important changes to discuss in regards to the new Trident Pro 600 series of divers is the overall scale. Now, they'll come in at 38 millimeters in diameter, 42 millimeters in diameter, which is 1 millimeter smaller than the previous Mark II, and 40 millimeters in diameter as well, which is great for those of us who didn't want to go for the 43 millimeter diameter scale and found the 38 millimeter scale too small. This is a very welcome change and one we've all been waiting for. So thank you for listening to us in making that smaller scale, or rather that middle scale. Now, for all those loom junkies out there, all three variations of the new C60 Tridents are receiving an upgrade in their luminosity. Both the handset, dials, and bezel inserts of all three versions of the C60 Tridents to release have been upgraded to X1 GL C1 Superluminova. And all of this is to say, and in their wording, is that it's going to have 100% improvement over the luminosity of the watch. So we're doing our math here. This should be twice as bright as the previous versions of the C60 Trident Pros. And of course, we are going to get a loom shot in later, and all I can say is that it's very bright. The next notable improvement to the C60 Trident series is with the handset itself. You'll notice that baton minute hand, but then also on the left-hand side of the face here, that triangular hour hand. Now, they state that this was to increase legibility in low light conditions, switching to this current handset with its brushed down the center and polished edge approach. But I know some of you may have preferred the look of the previous handset. I will state that the legibility here is excellent, and I actually really like this change. It's a welcome one in my book, but let me know if you prefer the previous look of the older handset, the one they'd been using for the past few years now, or do you like the change here? I'm curious as to your take. Another huge improvement in my book is with the re-engineered crown and brand new case. The case dealing on these brand new C60 Tridents is simply stunning, and I'll say it here, I find the high polish detailing to be just as fine as the Zaratsu finishing of my Grand Seiko. They just did a stunning job with this case. And the whole idea behind this new case redesign is it's supposed to be a light catcher, and that's their terminology. The idea being it's slimmer in profile when you take in the sides. So it's a little trick of light, but it also wears better now the way it has been shaved off, the beveling on the bottom of the case and the way it greets your wrist. It's just a more comfortable wear than the straight edge looked of the previous iterations. It's also just really stunning to take in person. Other notable improvements include the bezel action here, the 100% waterproof Cordura rubber straps that feature quick release spring bars, and of course I don't have one in hand, but the metal bracelets that are going to be featured on the C60 Tridents will also incorporate a quick release spring bar system. So if you buy into their system of straps, you'll be able to switch in and out of all of their branded straps very easily with the quick release spring bars here. All right, and with all of that, why don't we step into the review, of course, discussing the bad first and then the good before moving on to my final verdict on the C60 Trident GMT. The C Ward C60 Mark III Trident GMT, by my measurements, measures 42 millimeters in total diameter, with 49 millimeters from lug end to lug end. The watch case itself is 14 millimeters thick and features 22 millimeter lug widths. The marine-grade stainless steel case here features a ceramic bezel insert, a 600-meter water resistance rating, of course, where the name Pro 600 comes from, and inside beats the heart of an ETA 2893. Up top, we have an anti-reflective sapphire crystal and, of course, a date window at the 3 o'clock position. And beyond the new diamond-polished handset, we have a new dial here. The GMT will come with either a polished black and or blue dial. Now, my first bad note is in regards to the bezel. I think the action has certainly improved over what I had experienced with the C Wards I've owned. However, I will state that with 24-hour bezels, I do prefer that they go bidirectional. Here we have a 120 click bezel that only goes in one direction. So it's unidirectional and it goes counterclockwise, obviously. Now, this is convenient if you're using it to time things. However, for the GMT function, it does lack the convenience of going both directions. I'll also state that there is still a little bit of backplay on the bezel. However, the action is tighter than it has been before. My next bad note in regards to the C60 GMT is its thickness. Now, this isn't necessarily on the design team's part, and I think this is partly why they switched to the light catcher cases of the Mark III models. But the ETA 2893 inside does have its limitations in that it is a thick movement. I think most of the case's thickness comes from that movement, less so getting this watch to be water resistant to 600 meters, although that is very impressive for a 14mm thick case. Now, I will state that despite its thickness, this doesn't wear like a large watch, although I know a lot of you will dislike how thick this watch is. And again, most watches that feature this movement are going to be about that thick. I will say, however, that this watch really masters that movement with this new case design, which we'll talk about in just a second. Also, it's a sports watch, and there are thicker sports watches on the market. I mean, Omega makes some ridiculously large watches, and this watch is just as capable as many of its competitors, so props to making this as small as you have with that movement inside. My last bad note is in regards to the Cordura strap that this watch head came equipped with. It's a fine strap and it wears very well. However, it does take a while to break in unless you want to cheat that process with the hot water trick I've showcased on the show before. It's not that it's uncomfortable on the wrist, it's just very awkward. Now, maybe you've had a strap like this before, but usually thick rubber straps, when you size them for your wrist, if they haven't broken in completely, they have a tendency to pop the watch head off your wrist at an odd angle. It makes reading the time awkward at times, but it isn't uncomfortable on the wrist. So you can take this more as a neutral note. I think I would have preferred a leather option with this watch head. It would have looked really good with a chocolate brown leather strap or the metal bracelet that these come equipped with. And with all of those bad notes out of the way, why don't we talk about some of the things I love about this new design, namely the light catcher case. There have been many quality of life redesigns and changes to the Trident Pro 600 series, namely the action for the crown and the bezel itself. But the biggest change, the thing that's really drawn me to this watch, is the redesign of the case. It's absolutely stunning. It's beautiful to look at and it wears extremely well. And there's more and more watches coming out that feature similarly styled cases to C Wards of the past and present. And it's nice to see them make the change to get a design out there that is wholly unique. I love the language of this case, and it still maintains that C60 language that we've had before, that classic Trident look. Again, this is the 10th anniversary of this watch, and they've really celebrated it well here. Really, this is the perfect redesign of this case. It's so handsome and it wears so well on the wrist. I love the fact that they've shaved off the undersides of the case to make it greet your wrist a little bit more comfortably than the straight lines of the previous models. And not only that, they took great care in making sure those high polished bits are mirror reflective. They're just absolutely stunning. I'd love to know how they accomplished this because it does have that almost Zaratsu-like finish, similar to my Grand Seiko. And I really appreciate that level of detailing in a watch that's so affordable. And that's really what Christopher Ward is known for, making a great product at the right price. Now, these Mark III Trident GMTs will retail for £895 or $1,150 just a little over that mark. Do I think that price is fair? Certainly for all of the upgrades that are being featured here, and I still think it's a great value proposition for those looking to get a GMT watch or something with an ETA 2893 in a package that wears extremely well and is detailed to the utmost. But that fine level of detailing doesn't just stop with the case itself, it's also reflected in the dial. No pun intended, but that mirror-like finish of the polished blue dial is absolutely stunning. I love this change. It reminds me of how Omega switched from a wave dial to a polished dial. I actually really like those polished Seamaster Professionals. You know, Seaward seems to take a little bit of its influence from them, but I like this change here, and the applied markers are absolutely stunning. I love the new handset. I didn't know how I felt about it at first, particularly because the hour hand and the GMT hand matched just a little too much. However, after wearing this watch for a prolonged period of time, you begin to enjoy that look, and I like how they've maintained that iconic second hand with the Trident counterbalance. It all works extremely well. And of course, the date application doesn't cut into that hour marker over there any more than the applied marker over here and the text. There's just a really nice balance to this dial. Which brings me to one of my final good notes, and that is in regards to the text alignment and allocation of this dial. There's still folks grumbling about how Christopher Ward has changed their text. I like the new text, and I think the bigger complaint is how it is aligned with the dial. I think how it's been applied here is very well balanced, with the embossed logo at the 12 o'clock, the Christopher Ward text aligned at the 9 o'clock, and of course the date application at the 3 o'clock. With all the rest of the pertinent literature at the bottom there, I think this is just a very balanced look for this dial. There's nothing that need be changed here, so they've worked on executing it and executing it well. This is certainly the best I've seen this new dial face look. Now, before I give my final verdict on the new C60 Trident GMT, I'm going to provide you all with a wrist shot so you can see what this might look like on your wrist. Again, the Cordura option isn't one I would have personally chosen. I'm really aching to see what those new stainless steel bracelets look like, particularly because they're using a quick release spring bar in the end links. A lot of folks are migrating to that design. I don't know why, but I like it because it matches the rest of their straps in their collection, so it's very convenient for folks that buy into their system. But I'm curious as to how well those are machined and made. And of course, I just want to see a bracelet from C. Ward. I don't think I've owned a C. Ward bracelet on a watch head. So if you've owned one, let me know of the quality. Have you enjoyed that bracelet on that watch head? Which watch head did you buy with a bracelet? I'd love to know. But here is the new C60 Trident GMT on a 7¼ inch wrist for all of your admirers. And when you are going to admire it, it's going to look a little something like this. And here's the new C60 Trident GMT on my 7¼ inch wrist. Oh, goodness gracious. That light catcher case, I swear. That bezel, that ceramic bezel, is also quite the light catcher. Just mind you, that's more to do with how my studio lights are set up. It's really not that bad in the sun or in natural light, but those lights are just bearing down right on this watch head. So don't let that be a reflection of your experience. But that case is really stunning. It really makes the difference when you're wearing this in day-to-day use. It's so darned comfortable. And you can see sort of what I'm talking about here with that Cordura strap. It sort of just pops, maybe you can't. The top end of the watch is popped out just a little bit more than the bottom. You know, maybe I'm a little too sensitive about that, how my watches wear on the wrist, but it does affect me. Maybe it would affect you, and that's why I bring that up. But the watch head itself is just absolutely stunning. Of course, again, that loom is amazing. Really, there are just improvements all around with this design. And one other thing to note is the GMTs of the past used to have a 50-minute timer, a little countdown timer from the get-go. So from the 12 to the 3 position when this is at rest. They've switched that to being, strictly a 24-hour bezel. And to me, that's a huge improvement. I think the look is more pleasing. But secondly, it's just more functional as a traveler's watch, as a GMT this way. So, thank you for making that change. And that's really the last notable change that I can think of. Maybe I'll look through their literature and bring it up at the end of this video while we're doing strictly a wrist shot for you guys to see if I missed anything. But there's been a lot of changes here, and they're all for the better. So is the new C60 Trident GMT for you? Well, that all depends. Do you live an active life? Do you travel often? Do you like wearing your watches anywhere? Well, if that's the case, then I do think this watch is right for you. I've been a fan of Christopher Ward for a long time, and I'm so happy to have developed the relationship I have with their team to take in their latest products, because I feel they are making some of the greatest products in their price range. And this GMT here is no exception. My personal favorite design from them is still the C65s, but this change here with the C60, oh man, this is really bringing it in for me. This design, there's a reason it's so iconic. There's a reason it's their best seller. It's because it wears so well and it just looks great no matter the occasion. They really knocked it out of the park with these redesigns, and I think, props to their design team. You guys did an amazing job with this watch. And of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are there changes you would have liked to have seen beyond those that have been made here with the new range of Mark III Tridents? Are there things you wish didn't change? Perhaps the handset, and beyond that, the literature. I know some of you still hate how they do their literature now, but I actually really like how everything's aligned with the dial. Again, real smashing job, team. Now, I don't currently own a Christopher Ward, but as soon as these hit the market, I'm recording this way in advance so you guys know, as soon as these hit the market, man, am I looking at that 40mm C60 Trident Pro. That thing is going to be stellar, particularly on a bracelet. I love what micro brands produce, and that's why I talk about them so much on the show, but Christopher Ward is fast becoming a brand. No longer a micro brand, because they're touching so many people. I've seen their watches all over the place, particularly here in New York. It's just very impressive, the rate they're growing and the amount of work they're doing. So congratulations to the group on their 10th anniversary for this design. I really think you've brought it home with this new reimagining of the watch, and of course your brand in essence, because this really is at the heart of your collection, your divers, and this is really something special, guys. So great work here. If you are a fan of the brand, or as much of a fan as I am, let me know which watch you own from Christopher Ward, and if you're interested in picking up one of these new designs, and which one at that. I'd love to get your thoughts. Now, if you found this video enlightening or in the least entertaining, feel free to hit that like button. It looks a whole heck of a lot like this guy. If you have friends, forums, or groups that were interested in the new Mark III Trident series, well, feel free to share this video with them so they can get another consumer's opinion on the recent releases, particularly if they've been on the fence about getting a C60 in the past. Are there changes here that will hopefully push them in the right direction? Of course, I hope my opinions help as well. Also, if you're new to the channel, well, welcome. I do watch content monthly, so if you hit that subscribe button, guess what? You'll be up to date on all my recent releases, and if you hit that bell icon just next to that, it'll alert you as to when my videos air. Again, my name is Patrick Marlett, and thank you so much, Christopher Ward, for the time. So what do you guys think about the new designs? Which one are you most excited for? I've found that GMTs are trending in popularity. I'm seeing more and more out there on the streets, and folks just collecting, asking me about popular GMTs. But what do you think about this one? I'm really a fan of it. I actually really like the C65 designs as well. I'm not privy to everything they're doing, excuse me. But I'd love to know if they're redesigning the C65s as well. I mean, there was most recently that new diver design with the circular hour markers instead of the batons mixed with numerals, and that was a really good look. But I think I kind of prefer this look of the C60s most now. I'm still a huge fan of the previous unit I received in for review, the C65 bronze, with SH21, I believe. The manually wound movement I had in before. I still think that's my favorite model from them. The tone of the blue, just the dial itself, everything was in perfect balance. That's still my favorite model, but these new Trident Pros they're cranking out are absolutely gorgeous. Again, the polished dial, in my opinion, was a huge improvement. At any rate, thank you for watching this video, guys. I will talk to you on the next one.